Hello from Darwin, Northern Territory, Australia, and from Adelaide with Vin.
Hi.
Two Australians talking on cannabis, and this is a bit of a hot topic in Australia as of recent times because we are moving into the stage of cannabis becoming legalized in the context of medicinal use. And what inspired this topic was watching what's it called? Australian Story. The week before last, the whole show was on a lady who has really advocated with a lot of energy she has put into moving towards the legalization of the medicinal use of cannabis. Her name's Lucy Haslam, and she's from Tamworth, same hometown as my husband, by the way. So when they were filming the Australian Story, what we saw, the scenes were quite familiar to me. And Lucy, yes, was in the newspaper. So, yeah, Lucy's son was suffering from bowel cancer, and she used to go and just find ways to ease his pain however he could. So Australian Story was dedicated to her story and her son's story and the process of Australia moving towards legalising cannabis for medicinal use. So that's our topic today. And we've got Vin. Hi, Vin. And we've got Raymond. Hi, Raymond.
Hi.
Yay. So, feel free to have an intro, either, about yourself, the topic, both preferably. Fire away.
Usually my topic or area of expertise, so to speak, but just through chatting with Vin, and I sort of told him that, and actually speaking with you, Margaret, I let you know that about my father, passing away in 2013. But what the part that I hadn't told you guys was that he wasn't very open to, many alternate therapies or different things. But what he did start to look at very strongly is his health and fixing, all these, it made a lot of sense that, fixing off all of his organs and his different parts that weren't functioning properly through the cancer. But what we found is that the thing that sort of assisted him the greatest was medical marijuana. And the interesting thing is that none of my family come from a marijuana background. I smoked a little bit as a young man, as a surfer, thinking that was the thing you were supposed to do. And then I got heavily into martial arts, and so that period or that window was very, very, very small. And so I was quite sort of the opposite. I wouldn't say I was anti-drugs, but I was nothing like clean living was my sort of mantra, basically. So coming from that place and not having access to all of that stuff, and in a time where it was not really front and center in 2012 when he was going through, the majority of this stuff, you had to access. Everybody sort of knew the benefits and that there was medical marijuana was a great thing, but there wasn't a lot of information as well on how to do it. I'm trying to think of the mate. There's been one advocate for many years, Borowski, Dr. I wish I had that on me right now, but he in the States worked out how to make the oil and had a lot of has advocated and gone all around the States. He's even been threatened many times with prior to all the legislation and stuff coming through, jail. But all he was about was helping people. And what most people don't realise is that the THC or the THC element that when when you're making these oils and you're doing these things, is is the part that gives you the effects. I was going to say what would be the right word? Not hallucinogenic.
High.
Yeah.
The high.
It doesn't make you high, but that's gone. So when you're doing it as for medical reasons or for medical purposes or to assist with something, the benefits were not only was it sort of assisting with his healing, but it was also taking away all the pain, because everything's always focused on the pain being taken away, but it actually was assisting with the healing element as well. And they made this oil, and it got actually quite expensive at times for my brother to make it, and he actually made a different way using a ventilation unit. He worked out another way to do it that made it considerably cheaper and still had had fantastic effects. And then he even found right at the end, if he could get a certain strain, he got quite knowledgeable in the end of what he needed and what he required. And particularly the more natural grown ones were a lot better than anything that was hydroponically made or that was sort of genetically put together, because it seems that the natural ones, everything seems to come through. But he was juicing leaves like straight and giving straight juiced leaf extract at the end, and that was the benefits of that when had sort of almost straight away after doing it was just absolutely. But look, a long story short, and I'm happy to speak about any of this during the talk, but a long story short, we took my father off heavy doses of morphine, OxyContin, all the oxy things that you can imagine, that were not present, not around, not visibly with us, and doing all the different things that supposedly for pain. But we actually had, why it was so beautiful, and I've spoken about this before, is that he was present and he was basically pain-free at the time of his passing. And all this, and this is all pretty much due to using medical marijuana. Whereas like previously up until this point, he was gone. He was a shadow of himself on the drugs. He was doing things and not present. And so it's on the advocation side of it, we're actually strongly looking into at the moment the possibility of getting involved in the whole push for it, only because we would really like to know that there's some really good products out there available for people, because we saw what it did in our own family and what it can create for people. So yeah, that's a very
wow
story.
Yeah, wow, that's an amazing experience, and I'm just wondering, when you say your brother juiced the leaves, was it the juice that your father would take then? How did he take the marijuana?
More right at the end, but what there's a long process that goes into, and I was hoping to have my brother here today, but he has. It sounds great. It sounds sort of silly, but his bird died yesterday, and he has a really connection. This bird grew up for its early years in a pet store, and it has a lot of personality, and the bird and he were really good friends, but not only that, everything was a big shock. They've just found that he was actually a she. That the pet store, everybody, he'd fooled the vets, he'd fooled everyone, and he's laid an egg and then hemorrhaged and passed away, unfortunately. But my brother I was hoping he could make it and speak more about the actual process to you guys, but he's very upset, obviously. But but what we did, getting back to your question, sorry, was making oil was the main part. But if I can, I wonder if I could get I might have a look into something in a second for you. But the process is a longer, and it did require quite a lot of cannabis to make the small amounts of oil. But he found this system using a ventilation, what is it called? Is it a ventilator? You there?
You're mute.
Yeah, one of those little asthmatic ventilators that the asthmatic people use. Is that what you're talking about?
That little thing that would steam up the whole. You could sort of smell it through the house, and we didn't even care.
Infuser.
Was it that? Might have been an infuser, but he would make the oil, and it was working really well, and it was a much cheaper way to do it. So you weren't actually needing the same amounts.
Yeah. Okay.
You were required. So that was the main way. But then at the end, he found that the juice was just, and he said, "I wish I had known about this," This is half the problem, is because of it not being legal at the time. You had to go around around town and bits of misinformation here, and someone knows someone, and this is a bit of Google information here and there, and whereas there was no clear defined, this is a very good path sort of way,
Yeah, and that's part of the dilemma, I suppose, or has been the dilemma. Well, it still is. It hasn't been passed in Parliament yet. I think it's scheduled to become legislation, hopefully, by the end of the year. But that has been the challenge, I think, for well-meaning people, law-abiding people. You are caught in this dilemma about, and that was, Lucy spoke about that as well. And she was actually asked, how did you source the marijuana? And I think it was her daughter, Daniel's sister, who worked in a pharmacy, or she was a pharmacist, and it took both her mother and the daughter, Daniel's sister, went about asking questions, a bit like you said, Raymond. They'd ask around, and she said you felt like you're a bit undercover, or you'd be sourcing it on the black market, knowing that this is illegal what you're doing, but you're doing it with the right reasons in your heart. And that's what propels you to keep doing. And there are occasions, I often say, with people's values where we get quite staunch about our values, as though they're set in concrete. I thought, well, you just don't know what set of circumstances might challenge those values.
Well, what was really interesting in that regard, in our experience, was my father was many years ago was a very known man through he was one of the original people that started Dreamworld on the Gold Coast, and but he was very loved by workers and very known sort of man. So once the word sort of got around, in the end we didn't sort of hide the fact that we were looking to do that. We were very surprising the different people that came forward that could supply to us, because you just don't know who's a lot of people were users for different reasons already, and a lot of them wouldn't have been the people that you would have typecast as marijuana.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting to see, once you put that out there, the support that comes in from people, and they just start saying, "Oh no, I know how to get this and that." But the challenge then was, and this is I think what you're saying with the government, the legislating now and all that sort of stuff. The challenge was making sure it was the right sort of stuff that was going to be beneficial to aid in healing. And I know that I've done a little bit of research, a little bit of looking into it, and I know that the amounts that they use now for the growers that are already here, they're already growing the stuff for hemp and for hemp rope and different things, doesn't have enough THC content in it. My understanding that would really need to be looked at and even making medical. Apparently, it has to be a fairly high THC content in the marijuana. Even though you're sort of removing that when you make your oil things, obviously those strains are better for, from my understanding. I'm not claiming to be an expert here, or even what I've looked into recently, seem to be better for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
So just to clarify that, are you saying that the medicinal component is the THC, so that you can't remove the THC from the medicinal marijuana because then it would render it non-medicinal?
No, from what I was reading is that they only allow a certain there's a calibrating system for the amount of THC that's allowed in the growing crops that are around now, like for hemp and all that sort of stuff, hemp products. But what they're saying is that the THC level needs to be higher for the medicinal stuff. But this is where I think a lot of the stuff comes in with legislation, that they want it lower than maybe what it needs to be for medicinal. But like I said, the interesting part is that once you make the different oils and things, the THC component of it is not, it sort of doesn't make sense, but obviously that's something within that THC that is part of the healing process, the high amounts of it.
Yeah, this is a problem. The hemp has also suffered that because it's a plant that's been used for entertainment, for getting high, that it's damaged the willingness for people to get involved with hemp and use hemp in place of cotton and other materials. I mean, we could really do a lot with hemp if we didn't have those psychological barriers. I think is what it is, because it's like a historical sort of society approach to this issue of drugs and trying to demonize them and make it bad that people take drugs. I mean, yet we have wine and alcohol is perfectly okay, and yet there's some of the highest killers are alcohol in terms of drugs. So we seem to be okay with that. Although we did try with when was it, in the early 1900s, we tried to wipe out alcohol and it didn't work. I can see the same issue is going to happen, is happening obviously with medical marijuana that hemp suffered, but even worse because you're actually ingesting it. So, and as you've just pointed out there, Raymond, that the THC is actually the good bit that you need for the medicinal component. So it's almost impossible it seems, to make a medicinal marijuana that doesn't get you high. Would that be fair? Is that true?
Well, because from my understanding, though, they're not looking at in Australia, for example, like in Colorado and that in the States, where you can have your license to just go and get I think it's just legal in Colorado, but in the state, in Los Angeles, or California, you need a doctor's sort of thing, and then you're free to go and get whatever product you want. I think that what they're looking at doing here, from just the bits that I'm going into, is making like pharmaceutical grade products. So so there'll be growers that'll be specified and legalized, and there'll be products that are made, and then maybe certain things will get on the health food stores that will be, because at the moment they've got some stuff in it, but it'll say that it's not approved for human consumption. That's the little way around that they have at the moment. But again, if they're doing that, you're not really getting the breakdown or knowing that you're getting what you need to be. Like any product, you need to know what's sort of standard or what grade. It's interesting. I was taking a B vitamin supplement, one of those fizzy kind of Barocca type things, but it wasn't Barocca. I don't know the Barocca, but it's really interesting. One of the vitamins within it is actually a cyanide, small amount of cyanide, a cyanide derivative, and I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. And like we allow that to go into our product. It's like, I don't care how small it is, I'm not really interested in dosing up daily on cyanide. They're saying that it's okay. So I guess that with all of that as well, that's what they're looking to avoid. But it poses another question: is what sort of standard are we going to be allowed to have, and what sort of effects will it have on people I know that there was a thing called black self that they had for another thing that we use for removing cancers, and the Food and Drug people here closed their operation down. But this stuff was amazing. I saw it work firsthand. It would actually pull skin cancers out of the it was amazing. But apparently they went on to make their own version of, they labelled it under some other name and made a pharmaceutical version of it, but it never worked the same way as what the original herbal compilation worked like. So it's that's just a question that I'm asking. Is hopefully it's all looked into and the boxes are checked correctly.
Well, this is a big part of the problem. Is well, if you can call it a problem, is alternative health. They've tried to crack down on lots of different alternative health, and trying to get it to be sort of pushed through the system so that it's all official and that you don't have varying strengths of, that you have consistency and you have it all official. And there's been a big push on alternative health in the last 10 years. But it's funny because they don't put pharmaceutical drugs through the same rigor that they want to put alternative health drugs through. So, it's it would be great if they just applied the same vigor to when the testing of pharmaceutical drugs. But as you, Mark posted a chart, I've posted it on the sidebar here. If you want to pop that up and have a look, you'll see all of the deaths caused by drugs in I think it was 1983 in America. And you can see marijuana is right down the bottom with 0. It's called 0 deaths. I thought that was funny.
Well, and I think the good thing at the moment, how it's getting runs on the board, is because we've got people who are well respected, particularly in the medical industry, and this Lucy Haslam, who's the drive behind it now, the lady in Tamworth, she's a nurse, and so she has a good medical understanding. And when we get people who are well-respected people in the community, like, as you say, Raven, your father and your family, then when you've got people like that speaking out with lived experience and knowledge behind that, I think that carries a lot of weight. That goes a long way in removing it from the recreational arena. So they're just a bunch of druggies, or this person's in a lot of pain, fronting up to the doctor. He fronts up every week, and he always says he's got pain, and and I do know people. I've worked with many people who have told me that they've used marijuana. They smoke a joint, to help their pain. Now, I know that's not the same intention or necessarily the same product as medical marijuana will be or is. However, it's the same, essentially it's of the same product. It mightn't be the same strain, and people have reported that that's the only thing that can get them through their really significant levels of pain. And then I have others that I've heard that, they front up, their pain. I remember seeing a lady over years, and there was nothing that we could find that would shift her pain. I'm not in a position to say, well, have you tried to find some dope around? But she never reported. I think she would be ethically, I suppose, her value sense would not allow her to think like that. But maybe if it was medically available, she would try anything. But to be honest, I didn't think of it, and it's not high on my suggestions of products to try for people in pain. You know, and obviously it hasn't been considered legally, or a substance that people can openly try. And because I haven't got to that level of pain, I'm sure if I had, and I heard that other people were getting benefit, I'm sure I would have jumped on the bandwagon too. It's like anything, I'll try anything. So I think we do have some good people that are pushing in the push now for this, that it will, well, it is, it's you know, we've had members of parliament already speaking affirmatively about it. I don't see that it's not going to get over the line.
Yeah, pain is the greatest catalyst for change, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was, you know, there was the thing in Victoria that was really, I know that was really helped push it across the line. There was the little boy's mother getting arrested who had epilepsy, who was using the marijuana. It was the only thing stopping his seizures, and you know that everybody just knew that was wrong. That she was being arrested and investigated by the police and doing all these things. It was very obvious to anyone that the caring for her child was immense and amazing, you know, the levels that she was going to assist him. So, yeah, those sorts of things. But I think the one thing that's missing in all this equation with, when we talk about, you know, we're talking about pharmaceuticals and different things and that is awareness and us in the equation. We're the one that's missing in that part. We're moving everything out and saying, oh, we'll do this and we'll do that. But we're not being educated or allowed to, even in our own, you know, diagnosis, have a part of it. Because, and I understand where that stems from. I understand how dangerous self-diagnosis can be. Also, that's not what I'm advocating, but I'm saying that you know you and you know your body, and we're not really being able to go, well, you know, this seems to work a little bit better for me than that. The system is all based off doctor knows best. You don't know. Whereas sometimes you do have those awarenesses, you do have those knowings, you do have that clarity, and it's not put into the system anywhere for your own feedback. You're just supposed to say a symptom, and then they say the outcome. So I think even with in this whole story, that's a part of, you know, a piece in it, a piece of the puzzle somewhere that needs to be looked into.
Mm. Yeah. Obviously, it's the subjective experience and the subjective levels of pain that are primary in the whole thinking around this, and in any individual case. You referred to the American. I get feedback when I talk. Are you getting feedback?
Yeah, a little bit. It's like you've got speakers.
I don't get it.
You haven't.
Yeah, I keep adjusting the volume every time. It's down and up and down and up. Okay, I'm not getting it now with the volume. So, are you getting feedback now?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, the researcher, the scientist, or the doctor that you referred to. Before Raymond, I can't remember his name, but there was a guy that I read about, Dennis Hill, a biochemist from the University of Houston in Texas, and he derived the essential oil from cannabis, and he has found that the essential oil kills cancer cells. Yeah. So it not only alleviates pain levels, but it actually kills the cancer cells. And I think that's, you know, wow, that's going to be a whole new opening.
Yeah, there's a link in there's that article that you tweeted, Marg, on your Twitter account. There are 20 health benefits of marijuana or something like that. There was one there about cancer, and it says it was from the journal Molecular Cancer Therapeutics. They found that cannabis turned off a gene called ID1, which cancer cells use to spread. And there's a link. Maybe I'll tweet that out to that study.
Yeah. So that's going to be a wonderful breakthrough, if you like, or a wonderful addition to the knowledge that we already have and the research on cancer. And if people can get pain relief at the same time it's killing the cancer cells, well, that's a whole different story to chemotherapy, where people get pain from the chemo and there is no guarantee that it's going to kill cancer cells. Sometimes the condition remains unchanged. The intention is that it might kill, this amount of cells. But yeah, it's quite a painful process in most people's experience.
Yeah.
So
I can't.
Yeah, go on.
This link that I've just put in, it's a movie about that doctor, but I haven't seen it. I can't attest to it or anything. I have seen other things with him before, in his journey, and actually people that were totally healed through that. But back in those days, when you see things on the internet with people saying, "Yeah, I was totally healed," you've got to be a little bit, had to be a little bit. I couldn't do anything. The doctor said I had 3 months, and then now I can run a marathon. It's sort of like, But yeah, apparently they made a movie about it, so I don't know if that link is.
Yeah.
So that's the novel. Right.
So I'm wondering about the possible ethical dilemma that we may have in moving down this path. Is there a danger of vulnerable people being exposed to more drugs, or drugs in an easier way to, and a cheaper way? Because if people are already covered for their prescription drugs through our health benefits, are we opening up the door to vulnerable people to walk in the door and say, my pain level's really high? It's just a question, because obviously that's part of the controversy that's out there, that we're putting more drugs into our world, our society, when we have a drug problem. So are we increasing the exposure to vulnerable people? Is there an ethical, dilemma that we're confronted with here?
I would say there's sort of 3 points to that. That one is anyone who's vulnerable wouldn't really be going out of their way to sort of seek ways to get high. By that I mean they're not going to accidentally sort of be prescribed it. So you're talking about people who are wanting to go to the doctor, to deceive the doctor, to give them a drug so they can get high. Well, that happens now with back pain and Valium and depressants and antidepressants. So really, there's not going to be. Are we going to ban all those drugs on the same basis, on the same logic? No, we're not. So we have safeguards around those, and this would be no different. Thirdly, I'd say it's not a drug, it's a plant. So, there's a very big difference between a drug and a plant. And one, as I said before, some of these drugs are brand new, have not even been tested properly, if at all, and unleashed on the public. Often you'll hear cases where people have been prescribed something. They'll go back to the doctor 6 months later, and the doctor will say, "Oh, don't take that. There's been people dying from that, so we've got to get you off that drug and get you onto another one." And, that happened to a friend of mine, and she said, "Well, actually, I didn't fill the prescription because I thought that drug was too harmful for my health to take it." So, there's a good example of where the patient still needs to use their brain and not to just blindly take whatever the doctor says, because really, this may sound harsh, but or cynical, but the doctors really are the drug pushers for the pharmaceutical companies, and they get perks and benefits for pushing the drugs. So, those are the harmful drugs that we need to worry about, not a plant that has no known cause of death ever yet still. That's my perspective.
And from my understanding, they're looking at making it more like a pharmaceutical product rather than, a prescription that you can go and smoke marijuana or anything like that. And the other sort of side of it, just quickly, is that through studies that I've seen, and even just through people that I've known that have been heavy marijuana users, it just takes away all their will to sort of go on to anything else. They've said that where people have used marijuana as a stepping stone, they were already looking for something else, and they've only used marijuana and thought it wasn't enough, and they've gone to the next drug or the next drug. So they were already actively seeking something, whereas any marijuana user I've known, it's actually just taken away their over a long term, taken away a lot of their drive, and a lot of their forget about putting, the people with the conspiracy theories about putting the fluoride in the water for taking away people's will. You might as well, if they want to do that, they might as well just let them all have the marijuana, because it's sort of it can just make everything a little bit more like, oh yeah, okay, no problem. let's go with everything. So that's just another way to look at it.
Yeah, and obviously the processes still need to be worked through for how the product will be obtained. And then you referred to, that we do have some processes in place already. And one that comes to mind is Sudafed. If you buy a Sudafed product now, you actually have to show your driver's license. And I often think, okay, so what? You show a driver's license and you go to another place and it wouldn't show up anyway. But my daughter was denied Sudafed product one morning when she was in Darwin. They said no, because you picked up a product yesterday. And she said, well, no, I didn't. And she said, well, yeah. And they had it on the database that she had picked up. She showed her driver's license, and she'd had had been administered 3 products, Sudafed products or something, in the last month, and I don't know what the window of time is. Anyway, she said, I haven't. And then I said, so what did you show as ID? And she said, my driver's license. And then it dawned on her. She said, I actually lost my driver's license. This is my new one. And so somebody had been presenting her driver's license to get the product. So, of course, we rang one of our mates who's in, one of the detectives, and said, you might be interested in this story. So, it seems that the system does work, because she needed it, for her cold and flu, whatever it was, and she couldn't get it.
Yeah, well, there's a good example, isn't it, of how drugs that are already out there, like Sudafed, are being used. What's happening is people are going around to all the pharmaceutical outlets and getting as many packets as they can, grinding them up and making some kind of amphetamine from them, because Sudafed is pseudoephedrine. So it's just, it's quite a useful drug to make speed out of and then make money out of it. So, even though we've got all these safeguards, that is still going on, and the illegal drug market is benefiting from these legal drugs. So, it is a problem, and I think we probably have to have even better safeguards. Because it's not really preventing misuse of the existing drugs.
Two of the main concerns that here in that article that I was from the Sunday paper here, I think the national thing that goes in a lot of the publications, the body and soul section this weekend. But two of the concerns that they listed here were its links to mental health issues, and also, what was the other one? It's a cognitive deterioration. they were saying that they were the two main issues that they were concerned about, but at the same time, there was a lot of for and against for whether it really does anything. But basically, as a quick overview, the ministers were saying it's going to happen because it's also going to be such a massive industry for Australia. When you look at what if they do it the way that they're saying they're going to do it, it's going to bring a lot of revenue into areas too.
And I notice, Vin, you put up in the side there the research there. Aggressive breast, the aggressive breast cancer cells. So it's an inhibitor. Okay, yes, killing cancer cells. The other part that I heard in Lucy's story on the Australian Story was that towards the end of his life, her son Daniel was having seizures. I don't know if they were of an epileptic nature or whatever nature, but she found that the cannabis actually reduced the seizures. And he also had no appetite, so he was losing weight and wasn't wanting to eat. But the use of cannabis actually gave him an appetite. So there are other, positive
that is something
symptoms there.
The appetite thing was something that really happened with my father as well. He had no appetite, he lost all of his appetite, but the actual food had come back. And I had heard about the seizures numerous times because that was the original thing that they were looking at the cannabis oil for was for people with epilepsy and the high amounts of seizures. It has had a lot of, that it's actually stopped seizures in some cases.
So, it seems that there are multiple benefits there. I somehow ended up having you muted for some of that, Raymond, so I didn't hear it all. I'm sorry. The sound's a bit strange, my end today, for some reason. Go on.
I was just curious if you still had your phone running the blab, but you wouldn't.
No, I actually turned my phone completely off. So, it's I don't know what it is today, so I'm going to try something different,
Just a blab glitch.
Yeah, I do have the aircon running. I don't know if that's a problem, but we've run them before with that.
Another one.
So, look, go on, Raymond.
I just saw this Deb Lynch, 55, a mum of 6 from Queensland, says that she was using cannabis oil to treat her autoimmune disease. So obviously there are that obviously can assist with a lot of. I suppose most immune system, all the things would affect the immune system in some way, wouldn't they?
Sorry, we did not hear much of that.
Is maybe your sound is playing up also, Raymond.
Sorry.
I think it sounds like your mic is just staying open, Margaret. I'm not sure why, but it's as Raymond's talking, I can hear little background noises from you, and not sure why that would be. Because normally when someone starts talking, the mic sort of takes over. Their mic takes over. I don't know.
Okay, well, we're on 9 o'clock in Darwin and we'll wind it up. Hopefully we'll do better with sound next time round. But really interesting topic. I'm quite encouraged that so many people are going to benefit, in all sorts of ways. I definitely think the benefits outweigh any any problems, any ethical dilemmas, if you like. And I'm very encouraged for those people who are going to get the benefit and in their illness, maybe improving their illness, being free of their illness, and also being in much reduced pain. So that's going to change people's lives considerably. And I think that's the bottom line. When we can change people's lives for the better, obviously we're all on a win then. So that's my final statement for today. Offering Vin and Raymond your final statements.
After you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I'd just like to say that if while we're in the process of waiting for legislation here in Australia, if anyone or from anywhere, if they're watching this replay or see it or anything and would like me to pass on information or pass on my brother's details, or they're looking for, just to speak to somebody or to be pointed in a direction of this, of what he had to go through or anything like that, please feel free. Probably get me through Twitter at the moment. It's the same handle at B_more_you. And just message me and I'll pass on any details that I can to you guys, because, that if it can ease somebody and assist their what they're going through and potentially maybe even more, then that'll be fantastic. That's really, that's a positive result for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's really nice of you to offer that, Raymond, because it's a great resource to have, because as you said, people going through the process are just going to be starting from scratch like you were, and if they can benefit from someone else's experience, that would be great. So great discussion. Thanks, Margaret, for choosing this topic. We could have talked for a lot more and gone a lot deeper, but we only have an hour, so that's always the way. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of alternative health of all sorts. So yeah, bring it on. I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So next week, I'm not going to be scheduling a Wellbeing Weekly. I'm actually speaking and emceeing now the Women in Leadership Summit in the Northern Territory in Darwin. So, I have to do a little bit of homework between now and then. So I won't be having a blab next Wednesday. It may be possible to schedule one earlier, but I do have one coming up on Friday, Spiritual Conversations, the same time. I've moved to this 8 o'clock time zone now here in Darwin. And the topic for Spiritual Conversations on Friday is dreams. What do you make of your dreams? So we're not talking about people's goals, coaching and goal setting. It's not that sort of dream. It's the subconscious, the dream state in our sleep. So that's Friday's session. So love to have you join us. So thanks, Vin. Thanks, Raymond, for coming in, and love your story and very generous offer you put out there for people. So thank you very much.
Are you brave enough to periscope a little bit of your summit, Margaret?
Oh, okay. Hadn't thought of it. Yeah, why not? I see that people do that.
It just sounds really interesting, and it just sort of shows who you are, because it's interesting to see a snapshot of people's lives, and something like that particularly is it's a great compliment to you that you've you're invited to that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks for the idea. I hadn't even thought of it, but now I'll certainly, I'll probably do that.
Or even just some tweets or Instagram pics. Anything. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, we're your biggest fans. We'll see.
Love it. Thanks, guys. Okay, catch you next time. Bye.